Another theme that I want to talk about that I have discussed before, and probably you're getting tired of hearing about it, is Victor's association with nature, and again how he had sought to delve into her secrets. Remember, it is a female. Delve into her secrets and crossed over the lines by going against the laws of nature. The laws of nature says if you're born, you die. So Victor took on the aspect of God or deity and tried to turn that around. Also, something that I didn't say in the last video, but I want to say in this one, and it has to do with nature being a she. Victor goes and violates the secrets of nature. He keeps prodding and poking until he gets the answer that he needs to the question of how can I stop death. Then I was talking about his marriage to Elizabeth. Well, Elizabeth is a she as well. He does not go the step further and find out the secrets of married bliss, for lack of a better word, and again, not to offend anyone. So I'm not saying that he's relieved because Elizabeth is dead, but that whole connection with birth and death and love, he certainly stopped short of going against or delving into further secrets of the nature of she. Now, I also want to point out, and this is in chapter 19 when he is going to the Orkneys. I kept wanting to say the Hebrides before, and it is indeed the Orkneys. He said that he had, and this is on page 173 in my book. He says, I felt as if I had committed some great crime, the consciousness of which haunted me. I was guiltless, but I had indeed drawn down a horrible curse on my head as mortal of that crime. Guiltless? Victor considers himself guiltless? Do you think Mary Shelley considers him guiltless? Or is this Victor speaking from himself, or is Mary Shelley speaking through him? Because we need to be careful about when we read the words that a character says or thoughts that a character has. That's semantics. Whether or not that is what the author thinks, or the author thinks just the opposite. So I'm not quite sure if Mary Shelley thinks that Victor is guiltless or not, but Victor thinks he does. Even though he feels guilty, he says, I am guiltless. But back to the nature aspect. On page 174, he and Clerval have been traveling around, and now Victor has parted from Clerval to go to the Orkneys to begin his work anew. And he said he had to consult with some people, was the reason why he didn't start right away. And now we're never told what he was consulting them about. But at any rate, now he is ready to begin to create a mate for his offspring. And where he has talked about the Alps, like Geneva, and has gone on and rhapsodized about nature and how he, found solace there. Now he's in the Orkneys, and this is a very barren and desolate place. And he says, and again, this is in chapter 19, I traversed the northern highlands and fixed on one of the remoteness of the Orkneys as the scene of my labors, going back to that birth image. It was a place fitted for such a work, being hardly more than a rock, whose high sides were continually beaten upon by the waves. The soil was barren, scarcely affording pasture for a few miserable cows and oatmeal for its inhabitants, which consisted of 5 persons whose gaunt and scraggly limbs gave token of their miserable fare. He chooses this place because he is, again, violating the rules of nature, not nature's. And so this barren and desolate scene on this Orkney island suits the labor that he is going to be about, because now, unlike the previous time when Victor was creating the creature, he doesn't have any noble goal or noble aspirations. Before, he could at least say, even if he were lying to himself, yeah, I'm doing this for humankind. In a sense, though, he still does that. because he's doing it so the creature will go away and leave humankind alone. Yeah, he's doing it because he feels some sort of responsibility towards his creature, but he's also trying to ensure the safety of humankind. And then for the rest of that chapter, he also says, I thought of Switzerland. It was far different from this desolate and appalling landscape. And throughout this, then, he goes back to the labor aspect. At one point, he says, my mind was intently fixed on the consummation of my labor, and my eyes were shut to the horror of my proceedings. And so he continues working on and on. And then in chapter 20, he starts to second guess himself, and he starts to have doubts, and he starts saying things such as, he had sworn to quit the neighborhood of man and hide himself in deserts, but she had not. And she, who all in probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with the compact made before his creation. And then in the next paragraph he says, even if they were to leave Europe and inhabit the deserts of the New World, yet one of the first results of those sympathies for which the daemon thirsted would be children. And a race of devils will be propagated upon the earth, who might make the very existence of the species of man a condition precarious and full of terror. Had I right for my own benefit to inflict this curse upon everlasting generations? And then a few sentences later, I shudder to think that future ages might curse me as their pest. Now remember, earlier in the book, he was saying that future generations were going to bless him as their savior, whose selfishness had not hesitated to buy its own peace at the price, perhaps, of the existence of the whole human race. Now, this begs the question of whether or not he could have made this female creature without the ability to reproduce. It would have been very easy to do. Now, maybe Mary Shelley didn't think of that, but of course, to move the plot along, this new creature has to die. And so he does. He kills it. Or I shouldn't say that he kills it because he hasn't brought it to life yet, but there is a miscarriage or an abortion, and he tears it apart. And it says that, trembling with passion, tore to pieces the thing on which I was engaged. And the creature who has been standing outside watching, at this point comes inside and calls Victor his slave, says, you are my creator, but I am your master, obey. And Victor, of course, refuses to do so. And there are some other, throughout this, there are allusions that I have not even mentioned. For example, there are the allusions to Cain. The creature is like Cain, who is marked and must wander. And again, there is also, when Victor is talking about how the female might react, he's relating her to Eve. Because who brought humankind down before? It was Eve. In Greek myth, who brings upon the ills of mankind? And I'm saying mankind not in a sexist way, because Pandora was the first woman. It was Pandora. So women are even worse than men. So down further in this same chapter, he says, it is well, I go, but remember, I shall be with you on your wedding night. And so a promise is made, and as we already know, that promise was kept.